on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
And we have two guests on today's show. In segment one here, it'll be Chris Garcia, a former senior Trump official at the Commerce Department. In segment, he'll be on talking, I guess we could say, with the Republicans. And in segment two, it'll be Steuben County Democratic Chairman Shawn Hogan. First, welcoming Chris Garcia. Chris, you were on back in August. Thanks for coming on again.
Hey, it's great to be back on.
On the Drudge Report this morning, lots of stories. Let's go through some of them. One of them says, did Beto blow it, talking about the Texas race there between Beto O'Rourke and Senator Ted Cruz. Did you have any thoughts on that one?
Well, I just think it's interesting how far we've come from the 2016 election, with the bitter rivalry, of course, between Senator Cruz and President Trump as candidates for president. I think now we've seen what a dynamic bump that Senator Cruz has received because of the campaign rally that President Trump did in Texas. This was a neck-and-neck race, but now it looks like Senator Cruz is running away with it, and I think that has a lot to do with President Trump's presence there in Texas.
Other headlines off the Drudge Report. Election test, movement or moment. Presidency faces high stakes. That was an Associated Press story. You don't even have to click on it to know that that story is very accurate, with Democrats very much wanting to take the House and impeach President Trump. Your thoughts, Chris Garcia?
Well, all we have to do is take a look at the Kavanaugh hearings, and that is a great foreshadowing of what Congress will look like if the Democrats take the House. It's not going to be about policy. It's not going to be about taking care of Americans. It's not going to be about protecting America's foreign interests. It's going to be about impeaching Donald Trump, period. Anybody that Donald Trump has been around, anyone that's been close to the president, they will try to systematically pick them apart, ruin their lives, just like they did to Justice Kavanaugh, just to get to the president and try to stop his agenda. And that's an unfortunate thing. It's been a very sad day for America when that happens. But I think tomorrow we have the choice of whether we want to continue to see the growth that we've seen under President Trump, best economic numbers in decades, I would say, in some measures, and really the respect that we receive around the world now as a result of President Trump's strong pro-America, America First agenda. Do we want to see that continue, or do we want to see another reenactment of the Kavanaugh hearings?
You talk about the Kavanaugh hearings. That took place a couple of weeks after you were on this show. What do you make of these stories that are coming out that all these accusers of Brett Kavanaugh are being proven false?
Well, I think it's first important to say that, we always want to presume an individual's innocence. That's what the nation's all about. The United States is about being innocent until proven guilty. And then at the same time, we have to be sensitive to the very really touchy topic of sexual assault and sexual abuse. But we have to make sure we go in and find the facts. That's why it was so important, and why President Trump and Senate Republicans were so adamant about getting to the bottom of these stories and these accusations, and actually doing it in a private setting to spare the dignity of both the accuser and the accused. Unfortunately, now we have at least one of those, I think now two, it's just been released, that have completely either made up the allegations, or there has been no evidence found to support the accusations against Justice Kavanaugh. So the truth always comes out. I think we now see that, but the question is whether the media is going to report that.
Talking with former Trump administration official Chris Garcia, live on our Newsmaker line here in segment one. One of the more than one of the headlines on the Drudge Report this morning talks about early voting. What do you make of the whole early voting process, Chris Garcia? Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Will it help or hurt the president? Your thoughts?
Well, I think just the system overall is a great system to be able to have Americans vote at their convenience Not a lot of folks, even though they're supposed to be given time to take off work on Election Day to go vote, people have a busy lives, they have families to take care of. A lot of people are working 2-3 shifts and so forth. Of course, that's now, more people are now employed under President Trump. So we want to make sure that they have the chance to go vote and vote early. I think that what we're seeing now is a stronger turnout this election than previous elections, and so the previous blue wave now may turn out to be a red wave. And I think ultimately what we're seeing, especially swing states like Florida, we're seeing early voting numbers where Republicans have, I think this story just released today, has 60,000 plus Republicans voting, more than Democrats. But that does not include, I would argue, a lot of the panhandle of Florida that was not able to vote because of the disaster. So I think it ultimately bodes well for the president. I think that there's going to be very, very good numbers, but we have to make sure that all Republicans turn out, all independents turn out, and frankly, all Democrats that want to see more money in their pocket turn out and vote red.
The caravan, not a lot of headlines about that this morning, but the caravan is always a big story. How do you see the caravan affecting the vote? Will that help the Democrats? Will that help the Republicans? How will that go, Chris?
Sure. No, I think that has really generated a lot of interest in the media. Obviously, it's gotten a lot of emotions stoked, but this is a national security issue. And I think that all Americans are concerned about their families, their homes, their cities, their communities, and they want to make sure that we know who's coming in and who's coming out. I think the majority of Americans can agree that we have to be able to keep track of who's in our country and who's not. So I think that it becomes an issue not about race or not about nationalism or some of this other nonsense that the left wants to try to say that it's about. This is an issue of national security. It's about protecting the citizens of America. So I think President Trump has raised a very good point about whether it's this this caravan that has made its way up. It's not going to reach the United States by tomorrow, but it's still an issue that needs to be discussed, which is, should Americans have the right to determine who comes into their country, or do we, or as Democrats would like to see, do we just have open borders and have people pour in and give everybody asylum and act as though the United States has unlimited resources to take care of the world? And that becomes the issue. That becomes the question: is do you want to have oversight over who comes in, or do you not?
Talking with former Trump official Chris Garcia here in segment 1 of the Newsmaker show. Couple of big photos on the Drudge Report. Obviously the president, but also former President Obama, who's been stumping for a lot of candidates lately. What effect do you think that it'll have with the two out there talking, Obama and Trump both? How much will both get out the vote for their particular parties?
Well, I think if you have to rely on a former president like President Obama to be able to drive out your numbers, I think you're in trouble. President Trump, I think, far outweighs, just in terms of attendees, all of President Obama's rallies. Not only is President Trump doing more rallies, but he's also getting 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times the attendees that President Obama is getting at his rallies. So I think the candidates that President Trump is stumping for are ultimately going to see a much bigger wave of voters that support them. And I think that there's just no question that the president has been able to rile up and really just get people motivated to go to the polls. Whereas if you remember a few weeks ago, probably about a month ago, there was a huge concern about the disparity and the gap between Republicans and Democrats in terms of voter enthusiasm. So I think President Trump has been able to close that gap, and ultimately he's going to be the one that delivers more Republicans to the polls for many of these House seats that are going to be determining who keeps control of Congress.
Down to the last couple of minutes here with former Trump administration official with the Commerce Department, Chris Garcia. Chris, any final thoughts going into the election tomorrow?
Yeah, no, it's very simple. This is an election that's about the presidency of Donald Trump. A lot of Americans took a chance and they said, you know what, I'm going to give this guy a shot. And he has not disappointed. Everything that he's promised, he's either accomplished or he's put forward, and it's been obstructed by Democrats and a lot of the establishment Republicans. But the point is that 90% of Americans have more money in their pockets today because of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Corporate taxes have been cut. Middle-income families' taxes have been reduced, have been cut. I mean, you're talking about 4% GDP growth this last quarter, which was unheard of under President Obama. America is safer. We're more prosperous. We're more respected now. And frankly, the president is going to continue to deliver on these promises, but we have to make sure to support him. So the question becomes, do you want to have a party in office that wants you to have more control over your life, that wants you to be able to determine how to spend your money, that wants you to be able to say how your family should live its life? Or do you want a party that says that they think that they know what's best and how they should spend your money, and they want your best interest in mind, and they want to control the way you run your life, and they want to control how your family has their life run? So the choice becomes very clear. If you want more independence, you want more money in your pocket, you want more job opportunities, you want higher wage growth, vote Republican. Otherwise, stay at home or vote for a Democrat.
Chris Garcia, I want to thank you very much for joining us this morning here on AM 1480 WLEA.
Thank you.
And we have Steuben County Democrat Chair Shawn Hogan coming up next. Stay with us.
The Ryan Agencies, your local, independent insurance agencies. The Ryan Agency employs 15 of your friends and neighbors. They live, shop, and support our community. When you buy insurance from the Ryan Agency, you support local families. Contact the Ryan Agencies today, your local source for all things insurance.
Insurance protection you can rely on. The Ryan Agency.
Checking in with meteorologist Gary Best, who says it's going to be rainy today and tomorrow, Election Day, but don't let that stop you getting out from voting, right, Gary?
That is correct. Get out there and vote. Weather's not going to be all that bad, but yeah, we're looking at some showers. At least it's not snow and ice. We're going to save that for later, but in the meantime, we've got showers out there this morning, then clouds during this afternoon. This morning's sunrise was at 6:50. It'll set at 4:58. We're probably not going to see it set with the clouds this afternoon and temperatures up near 50. Another batch of showers coming in later tonight, down around 45, and tomorrow is kind of wet. Showers, maybe a thunderstorm, high temperature, low 60s, kind of a mild day. Showers end Tuesday night. Wednesday, hey, we get a break, mostly sunny, but a bit cooler, 45 to 50. Fair, cool, and dry for Thursday, and wouldn't you know it, more showers. Brian coming up on Friday.
And it's the Newsmaker show. Two guests in today's show. We just heard from former senior Trump official Chris Garcia in segment 1. Now welcoming here in segment 2, Steuben County Democratic Chairman Shawn Hogan. Thank you for joining us this morning, Shawn.
Good morning, Brian. Good morning.
Well, so much going on in the in a lot of races. We're one day ahead of the election. I'll ask you a question, Shawn Hogan, that I asked of our last guest. What do you think of early voting and its effect on these year's races?
Well, I'm a big proponent for early voting. I think it allows people an opportunity to who have trouble normally getting to the polls on Election Day itself because of work schedules and things like that and family schedules. I'm a big proponent of early voting, and I think the numbers are showing record early voting across the country in those states that allow it. So I don't know. They say that in the early voting, and it looks like the Republicans have the edge in the early voting. That I don't know. I'm not a pollster, and I'm just anxious for this election to be over. I think a lot of people are tired of the politics and the rhetoric and things like that, and now it's time for the people to make a decision and step up and vote. And it's always been heartbreaking to me, Brian, that so many people choose not to vote. So many people may not have voted in years. So many people may not even be registered to vote. And that's heartbreaking in a country that prides itself on being the the premier democracy in the world. So I just hope people get out to vote, and they vote for the candidate of their choice. You know, I mean, obviously, I'm a Democratic Party official, and I certainly encourage people to vote Democratic. But more importantly, I encourage people to vote.
In the last segment, I pulled questions from the headlines on the Drudge Report. Now I'm pulling questions off the Huffington Post. And from the HuffingtonPost.com headline, nothing is certain on the eve of the first nationwide elections of the Trump presidencies. It says Tuesday's elections will test the strength of Trump-era political realignment defined by evolving divisions among voters, divisions by race, gender, and education. It says Trump's Republican coalition is increasingly becoming older, whiter, more male, and less likely to have a college degree. Democrats are relying more on women, people of color, young people, and college graduates. The political realignment, if there is one, could reshape U.S. politics for a generation. Your thoughts on those statements from the Huffington Post, Shawn?
I think it's true. I mean, I think there's a lot of older Americans that are fearful of the demographic change in this country, and there's really nothing to be afraid of. No more afraid of than, you know, back in the 1800s, early 1900s, when people, you know, Irish need not apply here, or the Italians who couldn't get a job because they were the next wave. The Irish were the first wave of immigrants in the 1840s up to the late 1800s. Then the Italians, the late 1800s, early 20th century. You know, everyone has always been fearful. I can go back through history and politics and say that, but there's nothing to be fearful of. These are people who are seeking a better life. And that's what America was founded on. That was America's all about. But we have a leader at the top that's very good at divisiveness. And just like the candidate for the Abrams, the African-American woman running for governor of Georgia, or Gilliam, the African-American running for governor of Florida, according to President Trump, they're not qualified. They don't have the ability to be good governors, where Abrams is a Yale Law School graduate and has been minority leader of the Georgia legislature. Gilliam has been longtime mayor of Tallahassee, Florida, with a great record. He is appealing to the worst angels among us, and racial divisions and religious divisions, and he does it subliminally. And then he does it outright, bold-faced lies about people. And I think the American people, there's going to be a referendum on the way this man governs. And then on the lies he tells and the divisiveness that he breeds.
If the Democrats win the House, Shawn Hogan, likely impeachment for President Trump, what would happen if the Democrats don't take the House but win the Senate? What kind of scenarios do you see there?
Well, I don't know. And the thing is, you know, you talk about impeachment. I think we're a long way away from that.
Do you?
Yeah, I think we ought to get by that impeachment. I think we ought to get a majority in the Congress and hopefully the Senate, and then we govern. We show the nation that we can govern in spite of Trump. And, you know, so I'm not a big proponent for impeachment. I mean, I don't know what the high cream, unless Bob Mueller comes up with something totally, you know, that unexpected, and shows that the governor, the president is charged with high crimes and misdemeanors. I don't see the impeachment coming. I see a lot of hearings, but I think the Democrats would be penny wise and pound foolish if they just didn't start with a good agenda. Fix health care, fix Obamacare, and then, you know, meet the promises they give the American people by fixing health care, bringing down the price of health care, addressing prescription drugs and the cost of prescription drugs. That would show the American people what leadership is all about.
Shawn had a question for my last guest in segment 1 about the effect of Obama and Trump going out and stumping for the candidates. They have a headline here on the HuffingtonPost.com. Obama and Trump clash in their final pitches to the midterm voters. It says Obama and Trump were both offering competing visions for the country in a split screen of campaigning yesterday on Sunday. Your thoughts on the vision of Obama versus the vision of Trump?
Well, President Obama certainly has a message of hope. He has a message of unity, and he has a message of working together. Not divisiveness, not anger, not hatred. And on the other side, you've got a perfect, example of what Trump is promoting. He feels that hatred and division plays better with his base than touting his economic successes. Now, what does that tell you? I hope the better angels out there among us in this country show up at the polls, black, white, red, yellow, Catholic, Protestant, Jewish, Islamic, everyone show up and vote and take back our country and return our country to a message of hope and prosperity.
We've been talking to Steuben County Democratic Chair Shawn Hogan. Shawn, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem, Brian. I think you've done a great job of having some fair discussions during this election period, and I want to commend you and your station.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Have a great day. It's AM 1480 WLEA Hornell.